This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
Over the next couple of months, many of the country's biggest companies, along with the federal, provincial, and many municipal governments, are calling workers back to the office, following the better part of 4 years working from home for many, or the hybrid model, in office some days, at home some others. The companies say it's all about improving productivity, collaboration, and teamwork, something you can't do over a Zoom call. And it's also a push by civic leaders. The downtown cores of the cities buzzing again, filling up those office towers with workers and generating economic growth for the surrounding businesses that support the nearby area. But the companies have to get it right, taking into account how the workplace impacts how employees feel and perform, and actually leading to the productivity gains that they're looking for. My name is Mike Eppel, and welcome to In This Economy. Colliers Canada knows all about the commercial real estate market, what works and what doesn't for the office environment, and tracking trends in corporate real estate. This past week, Colliers Canada issued a report called How a Great Office Space Boosts Engagement and Productivity. And one of the co-authors is Sarah Bramley, Senior VP Workplace Advisory at Colliers Canada. I spoke to her this week about the study, and my first question was whether the return to office will come with some incentives for those employees who have previously been working from home, or will it be kind of back to the future, with employees feeling like it's so 2019 all over again. Sarah, what do you think?
I think what you've highlighted is one of the biggest problems we're seeing is that organizations are bringing people back to an office that maybe wasn't even working that well in 2019. The ways that people work and the work patterns and the way we use technology, the way we collaborate has really, really changed in a more accelerated way since the pandemic happened. And these offices that were semi out of date 5 years ago are even more so now. So you're right, in places where organizations haven't updated the work environment to support new ways of working, people aren't very happy to have to come back 5 days a week.
Well, it just seems like it's, back to the future, really. I mean, the whole idea of struggling with transportation and just getting to the office through gridlock, and then they come back and hopefully they actually dusted the place a little bit, right? Yeah, the expectation is that companies have to prove, in effect, that they're not just calling people back just to fill the space, that there is a reason, that this is somehow going to improve things from an organizational standpoint.
Exactly. And I think a lot of these decisions are made in executive rooms with closed doors. And then all employees know is that they have to spend an hour commuting, and then they come in and they can't get the Wi-Fi to work, and the meeting room technology is failing. And so there's a bit of a disconnect between the why are we doing this? What's the value for the employee of coming in, and the actual lived experience? That's what I think needs some care and attention right now.
The ones that are doing it right, I mean, they're going to have, you would expect some fresh designs, the age of the cubicle. Interesting about that, I was thinking, pre-pandemic, everybody was getting rid of cubicles. Open space was the idea. Maybe is there a new design to, keep the germ count down maybe a little bit, but it's not the office space of yesteryear?
I think what's happening is more of a continuation of something that was happening pre-COVID, which is a shift to more, we call it activity-based working. So giving people not just a single desk, cubicle, office, whatever it is, to do all their work from, but a variety of spaces that they can move within the work environment to use. So for instance, we spend a lot of time now on video calls. So let's take that out of the open office environment and put that in a room where someone can close a door and have privacy. So that's more of what we're seeing is more variety and choice within the work environment.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, if it's an enjoyable experience to actually go to the office, theoretically, this should do what they are hoping that it will do, and that is improve employee engagement and worker productivity. Because if it's not, you're going to get a big, these companies are going to see blowback. And I'm guessing it's going to be in pretty short order that you're going to have a lot of grumbling workers who are coming back and going, what are we doing this for?
You're right. If the experience of coming in is negative, people are going to, they're not going to be very happy about having to come in. It's important for organizations to really think about and hit on the things that are better in person that can't be replicated virtually. So things like mentorship and learning from our peers, learning by osmosis is something we hear about a lot. Things like in-person collaboration and building connections. There are things that are done really well virtually and from home, but there's lots of things that really need that in-person presence to be effective. And that's what organizations should really be focusing on, both delivering spaces that allow those things to happen and also supporting the behaviors and the activities that need to make it successful.
Yeah. I think it's also going to be something that people are going to have to get used to again, having other people around, from a noise standpoint and distractions. If you're working from home and if you've got an enclosed environment, the odds are pretty good that it's been working well. And there's, you're not exactly, you might miss your coworkers, but at the same time, when you get in there, if it is a distracting environment, then you're not going to be as productive as maybe you would have been just staying home.
Exactly right. And I think there are things both from a space, physical built environment perspective that can be done to help people with that. So for me personally, I think the example I use is sitting next to somebody eating an apple. Like people have misophonia and they don't like having these noises that aren't necessarily over the top loud, but just a little bit distracting. So there's things that can be done in this space to kind of allay some of those things, but there's always also behavior things. So tell Joe, who's really loud on the phone, to go to a room to take his call so he's not yelling and disturbing everybody. So there's an array of things that need to happen to kind of prevent that negative experience.
What is it, though? It's not just about the physical environment of the office building, but at the same time, the work from home allowed people to get their local shopping done and all these other things that, were closer to home. Is that something that a company has to consider, the local amenities to also, entice, have the reason why people might want to go back to the office, that they can still do the things that they were doing, with ease, as opposed to, having to struggle or just going from into the office and then back home and then not really engaging in any of the amenities nearby?
You're right. And in a hybrid world, if they put a gym in my building, that wouldn't make me go into the office if I had to choose whether to work from home or go in. But if I'm being mandated to go into the office, boy, is it nice to have a gym in my building. And so what we're seeing in the corporate real estate market is a bit of a flight to what we call a trophy asset. So these buildings that have gyms and conference centers and tenant lounges and cafes and shopping are having a much better time getting people, supporting people when they come into the office, because you're right, we had adapted our routines to do some of those things closer to home, and it'll just take some time for people to readapt to doing those things with a 5-day a week in the office mandate.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
I guess it's a situation where, the employee, if they look at it, if it's just a thing to fill up the real estate for a company, that's going to be looked at as negatively, as opposed to the company really engaging with the workers who are returning to the office and saying, "Hey, what are you guys expecting? What are you looking for in a friendly and cohesive work environment to make it worth your while?" Are companies engaging the employees to kind of lay the groundwork for what it is they can expect when they get back in?
I think the companies that are doing that are going to be more successful. So the companies that are having a two-way dialogue with their employees and not asking them, like, what do you want, but really gauging what is of value when people come together and what they want that experience to look like, those organizations are having a much better time. Certainly in our practice, we advocate for that, gauging the employees' experiences and gathering their feedback. They also have some great ideas for making it better. And that can really help companies prioritize what's really important and put their time and efforts there versus focusing on things. We've seen things like Taco Tuesday and free breakfast and swag bags. And those really aren't the things people are looking for. They're really looking for meaningful, valuable connections. And so that's what organizations should be focused on.
Have you seen an uptrend in leasing within the corporate space? For example, like in Calgary, the office space vacancy rate was, some months 30% plus. Is this starting to tip maybe in Toronto or the bigger centers in preparation for more people being back in office?
We're certainly seeing more of a crunch in Toronto, especially with the announcement of several of the big banks and other large occupiers in the downtown core, wanting return to office and therefore needing to acquire more space. But particularly the pinch is in those AAA trophy assets that have all the nice things that are close to transit, that have the gyms and the nice amenities for the tenants. Calgary is a little bit interesting because we did have and continue to have somewhat high vacancy in the downtown core, but a lot of the spaces that are empty are the kind of B-class buildings that aren't as desirable. We've seen a lot of flight to quality in Calgary. So if you're a large occupier, you're not going to find, a lot of contiguous top of the line class A space available. It's all in kind of little pockets. So we're definitely starting to see that reflected in all markets in Canada.
Yeah. And then you add in the government back to work mandates federally, provincially, and some of the unions of the public sector are saying you don't have the space. You don't have enough office space for all of these workers to come back in. So you have to figure that there's going to be a scramble here maybe for the leasing of available space here just in the next few months.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we're working with a number of organizations who have mandates to reduce costs overall, but then they're also bringing people back into the office 5 days a week, and that will mean they probably need more space. So those two things seem to be at odds with each other in terms of strategic goals. But you're right, there's going to be a lot of organizations kind of scrambling to understand, do we have enough space? Do we need to grab another floor somewhere? Do we need to move? Do we need to renovate in order to accommodate this change in work pattern?
I take it you're going to be watching as these mandates do come into effect, some in October, more so in the new year. What the feedback is, I guess, on both sides. Whether or not this is actually something that companies are doing and they're actually seeing a positive effect, and how employees are responding as well.
Absolutely. And everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing and what's working, and trying to adopt some of those best practices and borrow and steal from the ones that are working well. So I'll certainly be keeping a finger on the pulse and keeping an eye on what's happening in the market.
Thank you very much for talking to me today. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
And that was Sarah Bramley, Senior VP Workplace Advisory at Colliers Canada. My name is Mike Eppel. You've been listening to In This Economy. Remember, you can send me an email on this or any other episode with ideas or feedback. My email address, mike.eppel@rci.rogers.com. On social, I'm at Eppman, EPPMAN. Just a reminder, you can find all sorts of Frequency Podcast Network content on the Seeker app. That's SEEKR. Please rate, review, and share. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.